If you dread your birthday every year, you're not broken or ungrateful. Psychologists have discovered that people who dislike birthdays are actually more psychologically mature and emotionally authentic than those who celebrate them enthusiastically. Let's address something most people are too afraid to admit. You hate your birthday. Not in a casual, "oh, I don't need anything special" way. You genuinely dread it. While everyone around you insists birthdays should be celebrated, that you should feel special, that it's your day, you're sitting there feeling anxious, uncomfortable, and desperately wishing the day would just pass unnoticed. And society has made you feel guilty about this, like something's wrong with you for not enjoying forced celebration. But here's what psychologists are discovering. Your discomfort with birthdays reveals a deeper level of self-awareness and emotional authenticity that birthday enthusiasts often lack. Research from the Journal of Social Psychology shows that people who dislike birthdays aren't depressed or antisocial. They're often highly introspective individuals who resist performative social rituals. Your brain recognizes birthdays for what they often are: obligatory performances where people are expected to display gratitude, happiness, and appreciation on command. And you can't do it. Not because you're incapable of gratitude, but because you can't fake emotions you don't genuinely feel in the moment. Here's what separates you psychologically. You have an internal locus of evaluation. This means your sense of self-worth comes from within, not from external validation. Birthdays are built on the premise that you need others to make you feel special for one day a year. But you don't. You either feel valuable every day or you don't, and a birthday doesn't change that fundamental reality. While others crave the attention and validation birthdays provide, you find it uncomfortable because you know it's temporary, obligatory, and often insincere. Let's talk about the psychological burden birthdays create. Studies show that people who dislike birthdays often score high in authenticity and low in need for social approval. You hate the performative nature of it all, the forced smiles when opening gifts you didn't want, the obligatory "thank you so much" when someone does the bare minimum of remembering your birth date, the expectation that you should be grateful for attention that feels more about others performing generosity than genuine care. Your discomfort isn't ingratitude, it's recognition that much of birthday celebration is social theater, not authentic connection. Here's something most people don't understand. You dislike birthdays because they remind you of mortality and the passage of time in ways that others successfully ignore. Research from existential psychology reveals that birthdays force confrontation with aging, unfulfilled goals, and the shrinking horizon of possibility. While others celebrate another year of life, you're calculating how many years you've wasted, how little you've accomplished, how far you are from where you wanted to be. You're not being negative. You're being honest. Birthdays are existential reckonings disguised as celebrations. Psychologists identify several distinct reasons people dislike birthdays, and understanding which applies to you reveals deeper truths about your psychology. First, there's attention aversion. You genuinely dislike being the center of attention because it feels vulnerable and performative. Second, existential anxiety. Birthdays trigger awareness of mortality and time's passage. Third, authenticity resistance. You can't participate in rituals that feel fake or forced. Fourth, expectation pressure. Birthdays come with social scripts you don't want to follow. And fifth, disappointment anticipation. Past birthdays were disappointing, so you've learned to expect and dread them. Let's address the social pressure you face. People act personally offended when you say you don't like birthdays. They insist on celebrating anyway, as if forcing you to participate will somehow fix your problem. But here's what they're really saying. Your discomfort makes me uncomfortable, so I'm going to invalidate your feelings and force you to perform happiness to make myself feel better. They call it caring, but it's actually control. Research shows that people who insist on celebrating others' birthdays against their wishes score high in need for social conformity. They can't tolerate someone opting out of social rituals because it threatens their belief that everyone should want the same things. Here's where it gets psychologically interesting. You likely dislike birthdays because you've recognized that most birthday celebration is performative obligation, not genuine care. Your coworkers who never speak to you all year suddenly sing happy birthday in the break room, not because they care, but because social protocol demands it. Family members who ignore you most of the time suddenly reach out on your birthday, not because they value you, but because the calendar reminded them you exist. You see through this performance, and it makes you uncomfortable because you value genuine connection over obligatory ritual. Clinical psychologists have found that people who dislike birthdays often experienced childhood birthdays that were disappointing, forgotten, or weaponized. Maybe your parents made your birthday about them. Maybe you learned that birthdays came with expectations you couldn't meet. Maybe your birthday was forgotten or minimized, teaching you that you weren't worth celebrating. Or maybe birthdays became arenas for family conflict and disappointment. Your current dislike isn't random. It's rooted in learned associations that birthdays equal stress, disappointment, or performance pressure. Let's talk about the gift-giving aspect that makes you uncomfortable. Research shows that people who value authenticity over social convention often hate receiving gifts because gifts come with invisible strings, the obligation to perform gratitude, to use the gift, to reciprocate. You'd rather have nothing than have something that comes with emotional debt. This isn't materialism or ingratitude. It's recognizing that gifts are often social transactions disguised as generosity, and you don't want to participate in the transaction. Here's something profound. You dislike birthdays because you've realized that one designated day of attention doesn't compensate for 364 days of being overlooked or undervalued. If people truly cared, they'd show it consistently, not just when Facebook reminds them it's your birthday. Your discomfort is actually clarity. You see that birthday attention is the consolation prize for year-round emotional absence. You'd rather have authentic, consistent connection than performative annual celebration. Neuroscience research reveals that people with high social anxiety and introversion often experience birthdays as overwhelming rather than joyful. Your nervous system isn't wired for being the center of attention. When everyone sings happy birthday, when all eyes are on you, when you're expected to perform gratitude and happiness, your amygdala activates stress responses, not pleasure responses. Your brain literally experiences birthday attention as threat, not reward. You're not broken for feeling this way. Your nervous system is just wired differently than extroverted attention-seeking individuals. Let's address the age anxiety component. Research from developmental psychology shows that birthdays trigger what's called temporal landmarks, moments that force evaluation of life progress. Every birthday, you involuntarily assess, have I achieved what I wanted by this age? Am I where I should be? Am I falling behind? For ambitious, self-critical individuals, birthdays become annual report cards highlighting all the ways you've failed to meet your own expectations. The celebration feels hollow when you're internally cataloging disappointments and unfulfilled potential. Here's what makes you psychologically unique. You prefer authentic, spontaneous expressions of care over ritualized, obligatory ones. You'd rather someone think of you randomly on a Tuesday and send you a thoughtful message than have them remember you only because their phone reminded them it's your birthday. This preference for authentic over obligatory connection reveals high emotional intelligence. You understand the difference between genuine care and social performance. Studies show that people who dislike birthdays often have strong internal identity and don't need external validation to feel valuable. Your sense of self isn't dependent on whether people remember your birthday, whether you receive gifts, or whether anyone makes you feel special. You're secure enough in yourself to not need designated days of external affirmation. This is psychological maturity, not ingratitude. The truth about disliking birthdays is this: it's not about hating celebration or joy. It's about refusing to participate in performative rituals that feel inauthentic. It's about recognizing that forced celebration on demand isn't meaningful. It's about seeing through social theater and choosing authenticity over obligation. It's about understanding that genuine care is shown consistently, not annually. It's about being honest that birthdays trigger anxiety, mortality awareness, and uncomfortable self-evaluation rather than pretending to feel joy you don't feel. So if you dread your birthday, stop apologizing for it. Stop letting people guilt you into celebrating. Stop pretending to be grateful for obligatory attention. Your discomfort isn't dysfunction, it's discernment. You're not ungrateful. You're authentic. You're not broken. You're self-aware enough to recognize that calendar dates don't determine your worth. Let the birthday lovers have their cake. You figured out something they haven't. You don't need a designated day to know you matter. Comment, just another day, if you've ever tried to hide your birthday from everyone and felt relieved when it passed unnoticed. Let's normalize not celebrating.